Welcome, welcome, welcome. You are now tuning into the Positive Deposit podcast, where we transform minds and change lives. I am your host, Presley Nelson Jr., two-time survivor, proud president of Positive Deposits. And I have such a special guest with me today, longtime friend, Howard Hero, Edgewood. I can go I can go on and on. But I have none other than Jennifer Jackson. Yes, Jennifer Jackson with me today. So proud of you for coming on and sharing your journey. So I'm gonna give you the floor for a little bit. Don't go too much into what we're about to talk about, but I want to give the floor to you, Jennifer.
Well, thank you for having me on the show. I am a breast cancer survivor. I was diagnosed at the age of 33. I am now 38 and thriving, living well, healthy, and just feeling so much different than I did when I started this journey.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's just jump right into it, right? This is a great, courageous conversation. And so talk to me about when you got diagnosed. What was going on at that time?
The way I like to describe it is in my mind, I was living in this fairy tale. So I had just married this really wonderful guy.
He's
And
pretty dope. I'll be seeing y'all. He's pretty dope.
so he's a really wonderful guy. And so we were married and, starting our lives together. And so I was basically just one day. So the other misconception that there is that a lot of people think that breast cancer just comes from in the form of a lump, that it's detected just by like feeling it on the first or just, doing your routine breast checks. But that was not the case for me. And I am the only person that I know of that discovered breast cancer the way that I did. And so what happened to me is I just woke up one day and I looked like on the bed sheets and on my clothing and I was like, what is this? And it was this blood. And it was a bloody discharge that had come from my nipple. And I am such a scaredy cat. And so I hate the doctor. I hate just needles and all that stuff. So old Jen would have been like, it'll be fine. It'll go away. And I did that maybe for a week or two. And then I was like, okay, and it wasn't like a lot of blood. It wasn't like gushing out or anything crazy like that, but it was definitely noticeable. And so I went to the OBGYN. First, I don't know why I did that, but that's what I did. And she was like, don't worry, it's probably, blah, blah, blah. And so I'm just like, okay, worst thing you can do in a situation like this is go to WebMD.
It's the devil.
So the first thing I do is go to WebMD and I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. And just stupid. But anyway, so go to the OB and she's like, okay, we're going to have you go get a mammogram, blah, blah, blah. So we do all the things, go get a mammogram. Mind you, I'm 33. And so I was just like, no family history of it. I'm 33, everyone's like, oh, you don't have to worry about any of that till you're 40. No, wrong. And so basically, the mammogram, they saw something in the mammogram and they said, okay, we need to do like a sonogram kind of thing. Wow. And they did that and she was like, okay, we need to do a biopsy. So one thing led to another. And literally a few weeks later, I got, I had the biopsy like a few days later. And then like a few days after that, I was diagnosed. And the doctor called and said, hey, I did your biopsy and it has come back that you are positive for breast cancer. And the sucky part about that is that there were no details. So he wasn't like, oh, you're going to be fine. You're going to live. It's only, you caught it early. I didn't know anything. And so he's like, all I am is just delivering the message. you will now go to another doctor who will then treat you and tell you what the recommended treatment plan is, and you'll go from there.
Wow. So at this point, you're just in an assembly line, right? You're like, here's your you got the biopsy now.
Yeah.
Okay. You go to that next doctor, he'll tell you more.
Yeah. And
part.
then and the crazy part is that, so I got diagnosed June 29th.
Yeah.
And it was a holiday weekend. The 4th was coming up. So they were like, well, there's no appointments right now. You're going to have to wait until after the holiday weekend. So I'm like flipping through my calendar, like, that's a really long time. So I literally spent that entire weekend in tears and just like freaking out. And it was a really sucky place to be in. I would not recommend that they handle that the same way that they did for me with other people, but
So in that space that you were at, what's one word that describes where you were, what you were feeling after the
fear.
Diagnosis?
Fear. Absolute fear, because I'm just like, you're thinking of all the things you've seen on TV and all the stories of like, Gladys from church who had, breast cancer and lost her hair. And, so you're just like, am I going to lose my hair?
Right.
Women don't play about their hair. And, my hair, am I going to lose my breast? It's so many things that are going through your mind. And there's no one there to say, all right, don't worry about it. This is the plan. Because I'm a person that I can get over any hump as long as I can like figure out what the plan is. If plan A doesn't work, all right, I'm already figuring out plan B and C.
Right. So you got the diagnosis, you have this fear, and did you immediately have to go into treatment at that point?
So I got the diagnosis. They sat me down and told me everything and told me what they recommended. And so what they recommended happened first thing was, do you have kids? And I'm like, no. And they're like, do you want kids? And I'm like, yes. And they're like, okay, we're going to need to freeze your eggs. That was a whole nother thing that I hadn't even thought about. And so I'm like, wait, what? And they're like, yeah, because the treatment can put you in menopause and you could never have kids again, possibly.
Yeah.
So that was like the first thing. And it, that was a whole nother thing that I was like stressed out about. But in the grand scheme of things, that was the easiest part in all of it. So I went through with
frozen.
I froze them. They might be freezer burnt now, but I still got some.
Nah, they send real nice. Okay, that's awesome.
So I went through with that, then went through with the double mastectomy, with reconstruction. So did that.
So you didn't have to do chemotherapy. You didn't have to do any of that.
No, I did do. So after I healed from that, then I went on to chemo.
So wait, time out. So you got the double mastectomy and then you had to go through chemo?
Yes, because they wanted to make sure that anything that's possibly still living, thriving in that tissue, even though they had removed as much as they could, they wanted to make sure that there was nothing else still in there.
Of course.
So the chemo was gonna kill that.
Yeah. Now, granted, how was that chemo?
Chemo was hard. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. It was really, really hard. But what's crazy is that some people, I have some breasties that, they went through it and, it was like, I'm tired, or things are not regular.
Yeah.
But I was like, just curled up in a ball.
Yeah. Now, what are some of the side effects? Because I know chemo affects everybody different. Like for me, the first time when I had large B-cell lymphoma, very rare type of cancer, I had to have an aggressive chemo called R-CHOP. Now, R-CHOP, you only could take it once every 3 weeks, right? But when I tell you hair, eyebrows, everything gone, gone.
Yeah.
And sense of taste was off. It was crazy. So what were some of the side effects for you with chemotherapy?
For me, the worst part was the body aches. It was just, so I literally had what I called a hell week. So after, I would usually go on a Friday to chemo, and then by Saturday night or Sunday, that's when the side effects started. So I had really, really bad nausea, and the body aches were just really, really bad. Other than that, I mean, everything else was just like, all right, I can handle
Yeah,
this,
you
you
can
know,
handle it. Yeah.
being tired and all that stuff. But oh, I forgot one other part. The chemo rash. I had this chemo rash that was
You got the
literally,
chemo rash? Oh, I
it
heard
was,
so much about the chemo rash. Oh,
it was gross.
worse than
It
chicken
was
pox?
bad. Yeah. It was
Wow.
bad because, usually, people lose their hair and they're like, okay, you got a cute little head, you got a cute little face, you're just gonna,
Yeah.
draw some eyebrows on. But I had this rash that was all over my head, my basically from here up.
Wow.
And it was just and like seeing yourself in the mirror, like there was so many times I just was like, I'm not looking at myself in the mirror, because
Yeah.
it makes it feel like, dang, I am literally going through this. I am literally fighting cancer. And that is something that, like obviously it's a reality, but sometimes you're just like, I don't want to think about it right
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I've heard about the chemo rash, but definitely never experienced. So I can only imagine, this new transformation, and the beauty is that the beauty of us, we when this happens, it's like, you know what I mean? And it's like, and you and it points me into where I'm about to take this. How was your support system? Like what, how did people step up? Did you have, what was your regimen? What was your non-negotiables when it came to your support?
now. So luckily I had a really supportive husband.
Yeah.
We are not together but anymore, but during that time he was awesome. He was so supportive and loving and kind. And there was times where I couldn't even open a can of soda water. Like he had to come and do that. I was that weak. But I had a really supportive home life. And then
Yeah.
I had my girlfriends and my guy friends. Everybody basically like did things on a really big scale and a smaller scale. It was just all very, very heartfelt. Like some people were just like, oh, we're going to make sure you have meals
Absolutely.
every day when you get out from your surgery, or, people sending like little gifts and
Yeah.
flowers and things like that. Those little things put a smile on your face for sure.
No, absolutely. I mean, the support is real. One thing that, like, that's why I asked non-negotiables, is because some people don't know how to support a cancer
Yeah.
patient, right? Someone that's going through survivorship. And so my number one rule is, like, if you're gonna start crying, if you're gonna talk about dying, eh,
No, see,
eh,
I didn't deal with that. Everyone was like, girl, if anybody's gonna beat this, it's you. So like,
and
don't
see
worry
that's
about it. And
and see that's
and
dope.
I yeah, and I mean, I think that is the biggest thing too, is that um you set the tone. And I was like, look, we don't have to talk about cancer all the time. You can just call
Exactly.
me and be like, girl, did you see that meme on it, or whatever, like anything.
Right, right.
We could talk about whatever. And so and that's usually how it went. Or people would just call me during my hell week and say, how you feeling, you good, do I
Yeah.
do you want me to come visit? I'll come and sit on the couch with you, or whatever. So those little things were really nice. But I would say my biggest recommendation is just having the mental endurance and the positive mindset going into it.
So how did you get to that space, right? You go to a space from fear, and now you're adjusting your mind. Like, what are some mantras you may have told yourself? What are some things that allowed you to be positive? Because it's not easy.
Listen, I'm from Oakland. Okay. I'm from Oakland. I mean, I didn't have like a rough, upbringing, but I learned to make the best of what I had.
Yeah.
And things have not always been peaches and cream. And it has been me just being like, all right, girl, you're trying to get from here to here. What you got to do? What are you going to do? You want to get through it, right? Because I'm one of those impatient people. I'm like, I really don't want to do this, but let's get it over with. And that's just always been what I've done. I moved from California to DC to go to Howard as a transfer student with no housing. And
Yeah,
I brought my 3 suitcases and traveled by myself, and I figured it out. And this,
absolutely.
and it's been like that mentality for every other hurdle that I've had to get over in my life. And so, it's not always easy. Sometimes you just got to be like, look, girl, let's just break it down in little baby steps. We're going to get the eggs frozen. We're going to get the mastectomy. We're going to learn to love what we got. We're going to, go through the chemo
Yeah,
part,
yeah.
and we're just going to get through it. And then, it'll be over. Or at least the hardest parts of it will be over.
Right, right. And so it leads me to ask you, how did you share the news? Like, how did you let people in? Because I know it wasn't easy.
I am somebody that really, really does appreciate the support. I'm an only child, so my friends are my sisters and brothers.
Absolutely.
And I'm also a very open book. I will tell you pretty much anything if you ask me. And so this was no different. It was like, look, and I also like use humor in every hardship and just in general. But I'm like, look, girl, I'm getting some new boobs. It's gonna be great. And so there were times where I was just very like, hey, it is what it is. We got to get through it. And then there were times where I was like, oh my God, my hair is gonna be gone. And what is my husband gonna think and all this stuff. And I had people that were around me like, your hair doesn't matter. Your hair is gonna grow back. You're gonna be beautiful with it, with or without it. You're gonna have new boobs that you're gonna love and all that kind of stuff. So, all of that stuff helps.
So, I mean, the one thing you said about the humor, I mean, for the years I've known you, you always have made either a humorous situation out of anything. Like, it's just always positive. So this was only just another way to turn that positivity and that humor into survivorship and healing. And so I commend you for that, because it's not easy, like going through that, especially a double mastectomy. Like, how do you feel about that? Let's I'm gonna dive into that a little bit. Having a double mastectomy.
Every day for me right now is it's hard. There's some days where I wake up and I'm like, all right, here we go. And then there's some days where I'm like, oh, I just miss my old boobs. And the thing about it is, what I had before wasn't the best, wasn't, amazing, but they were mine. And that was what mattered to me. And then, you think of like silly things like, what's my husband gonna think? What is, and now I'm in a space where I'm getting back out there to start dating again. And that's something that, sometimes I get a little, nervous about. But at the end of the day, whoever comes in my life is going to have to accept me for every scar, every flaw, everything.
Absolutely.
And if you cannot, you can keep rolling.
No, I mean, and that's real, man, because you are who you are, right? And we get sometimes in dating, I'm going to go sidebar, that it's all about the physical and all these things.
Oh, yeah.
It's always like that, right? But at the end of the day, your self-confidence, if you got that Jill Scott confidence, and that's all that really matters. And so, I always wonder, some people like, look, take it or whatever. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's not all of what it is. So, and so like it just seems that like you've been not only a trooper, you've been a true warrior, you know what I mean? Like with this, and because to go through the surgeries, from the biopsy to the surgery, then go to chemo. Did you have to do radiation?
No, thank God.
Okay. Because I know some people did have to go through radiation, and that's a whole nother beast.
No, I know some people that went through radiation and they were like, that was worse for me than chemo. So I was very thankful that like I got over that, got past, I dodged that bullet.
Yeah, so absolutely. So after treatment, what'd you do next? You know what I mean? Like what was like the first thing you did after you finished treatment, outside of ring the bell?
I felt so empowered and so just thankful and grateful to have overcome something that was trying to kill me.
Yeah.
And I literally just wanted to share my story and try to inspire other women, mainly young women. And I know, everyone's like, why young women? And I'm like, young women, because, you know, we are, we think more about the superficial BS that really doesn't matter. But when
Yeah.
you're in it and you're like, my hair, my boobs, it's something that it really doesn't matter, but you don't really learn that until you get to the other side. And
Yeah.
so I wanted, and I still am trying to connect with young women that are fighting breast cancer to just tell them, like, look, girl, you're going to be a bad bee no matter what.
Yeah.
Your hair is
Yeah.
going to grow back and, it's going to be all good. And so that was what I wanted to do. I started blogging
Yeah.
and connecting with women on social media, which has allowed me to kind of create this circle
Yeah.
of women that, we talk all the time. And when we were going through it, it was great to have them because, there were three of us that went through it all at the same time. And
Wow.
one of which was pregnant when she got diagnosed.
Wow.
Yeah. And she was the one. I was literally going into chemo and I had found her like maybe a week or two before. And I was just like, she lives in Maryland. She's going through breast cancer. I should reach out to her. She's a Black woman.
Absolutely.
And on the ride to chemo, I messaged her, I DM'd her on Instagram and was like, I'm about to go to my first round of chemo and I am scared shitless.
Yeah.
And she said, what's your number?
Wow.
And we text the entire time. She was like, she was like, today is going to be the easy part. The other days after this, after the side effects kick in, that's when it's going to be a little bit harder, but you're still going to get through it. And so we have just formed this community of women that are just amazing.
See, that's so dope, man. And it's so, I love, the one thing I love about cancer is that it unites us in so many different ways. We don't have to know each other. We people just jump right in because we've been through that journey, whether hell and back, chemo, surgeries, the whole nine, and so that's pretty dope. I definitely, one thing I respect about breast cancer survivors, I have to tell this to you. I recently I saw an ad for the Breast of Us. That's an Instagram. I don't know if you know about them, but
yes, I do.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
you saw the ad that they did where I don't know if you saw it, but they did the post where they showed their breasts. Like they had like, that was so powerful. Jasmine, she's been on the show before. I don't know if you saw her interview. She's super dope. But I'm gonna connect y'all. Like she's definitely, that statement right there. I said that's next level. That's next level. To do that, because it takes a lot of confidence, courage, and vulnerability.
Absolutely.
To share, what this scar that is not a scar, but it's just the sacrifice to stay alive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's
and it's a really vulnerable place to be in sometimes to be that brave to show that,
Yeah. You probably be on there too. I mean,
We'll see. We're gonna work up to that.
We'll see. So I mean, I know. So what are you doing now? Like what is Jennifer doing? I know now that you moved, right?
I just moved, started a new chapter. I just moved literally like less than a week ago to Houston.
Okay.
And
I need to come visit. I definitely need to come visit.
Yes, I love it here already.
Okay.
It's weird to like drive down the street and not hear people honking their horns and not see a million people in business suits in a rush to get to really nowhere important.
How the South changes your point of view.
I'm like, look, I am loving it. It's just way more chill, less pretentious from what I've seen so far.
Yeah.
And I love it. So right now I'm just ready to embark on this new chapter, this new
Yeah.
journey, of just living and thriving and finding joy and peace. That's what's most important to me right now. So that's what I'm doing.
Well, you looking good doing it, because I seen the
Thank
transformation
you.
where you were a baddie baldy, you know what I mean? You didn't care. You had your doobie wraps, and now you got a whole head full of hair. Like, look at God. Look at
Look at
God.
God. God is good. Okay.
Absolutely, absolutely. Are you currently, doing any work with other, in your community? Are you thinking about starting anything, or,
I am. It's been a hell of a last few years. So there is a brainchild that I would like to start, but I mean, that I've shared with you, I think a while
absolutely.
ago, but I have not actually done anything with it yet. But now that things are kind of slowing down, I'm definitely going to pursue it, because I really do want to start something for young women of color going through this. There's a million support systems, but it's really about, for me, what helped me is being around women that look like me, that can understand what I'm going through, that can understand, you know, how sometimes doctors just kind of just shoo you along, and they don't,
Yeah,
really take the time to think about who you are and what you need and what your needs are. So my goal is to just start some sort of organization that will allow us to connect with young women of color going through this.
well, I know, if anybody can do it, you can. And
Thank
we've already
you.
had our conversations, and so, and I think that is necessary. One thing that I'm big on. That's why I started Positive Deposits, not only to touch breast cancer survivors like you, but just everyone. And I'll just say this. I need you to start your movement, because there's a movement that is coming, and I need you to be a part of that.
Yes.
I'm not gonna give it out on this episode, but
Not yet. Not yet.
not yet. But I think it's so important, to see you smile right now. You see what I'm saying? You would never know unless you shared, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the powerful thing about us as cancer survivors. We're superheroes and we don't even know it.
Yeah.
And the courage that it takes for you to even come on this show, I have to give you your flowers,
Thank
because
you.
it takes time to do this, right? But also
Yeah.
too, it's going to help somebody else that was
That
feeling
is
the same
exactly the
same
goal.
way.
Yes.
And that's the reason why we do this here on the Positive Deposit podcast. So
Yeah.
as we come to the final hour, as I would say,
Okay.
what are 3 positive deposits that you would share with a mostly recently diagnosed person with breast cancer, or someone that's after, the treatment is still maybe struggling or trying to push through, or a family member, that needs the support of
Yeah.
another family member? Just 3 that comes to mind.
First thing is find your tribe.
I like
Or actually, no. First thing is check your mindset. Figure out what you need to do in order to endure this crazy process that you're about to go through, because having a positive mindset and a positive attitude is really, really key in getting you through it. Like I said, humor was something that was so instrumental in me getting through it, and just laughing at myself and just being like, sometimes it's not always funny, but
yeah,
in the moments where I could find humor, I did, and that helped me a lot. And then that also helps other people not be so nervous about like how to talk to you and what to say
right.
and all that kind of stuff. And then the second thing is find your tribe.
Yeah,
Figure out how you can connect with women that resonate with you, that understand you, and that you can talk to, because you'll have people that are going to support you, family and friends and coworkers
yeah,
and all that stuff, but it's different talking to someone that is actually understanding how you feel, the
absolutely.
fear, the illness, the sickness, all that kind of stuff. That stuff is important. And then the other thing that we don't talk about enough is supporting the caregiver,
Ooh.
because that is something that is very, very overlooked, and you have this caregiver, and of course you're trying to fight for your life. So it's hard to also be like, hey boo, hey mom, hey dad, or whatever, how you doing?
Yeah.
But if you can, or if you can tell your friends, hey, I need you to check on my mom, or I need you, that is really, really key, because the person that's caring for you during it, they may not be going through it physically, but they're going through it in every other way.
Yo, you couldn't have said it better, man. The mindset, your tribe, and then the caregivers, because they do matter. They absolutely matter, because they may not be getting the chemo, they may not get the surgeries, but they're going through this journey with you.
Yeah.
And it's they're important. And so, but man, I appreciate you, Jennifer, for coming on.
I feel like this has been 5 minutes long. It was very good. I enjoyed it.
I'm so glad you came, experienced this, because we are changing minds to change lives. That's where we're transforming minds. So where can people find you, on social media? If there's somebody that wants to reach out to you, that how they get in contact with you?
You can find me on theyoungandthebreastless.com.
Okay. Yep.
And then also the_young and the breastless on Instagram.
Okay.
Which I'm not on as much anymore, but I'm going to get back to it.
Absolutely.
And then my personal is Jenny Penz, JENNYPENZ.
Well, you guys heard it from her. She has 3 ways you can reach her: on her website, on her Instagram, and personal Instagram. And so, Jennifer, I appreciate you coming on the show. This was amazing. You are amazing.
Chris.
No doubt. You are now one of the Howard heroes.
Yeah.
Our heroes, and you're always a part of the Positive Deposit family. And so, you guys, if you want to catch this, you know where to go: Apple Podcast, Spotify Podcast, iHeartRadio, even Google for those Android users. And also, of course, go to the website www.positivedeposits.org, and please feel free. There's a donation button. We can't do this without you. And so, with that, I'm signing off.